So what does that mean? Well, she's considering both aspects of the relationship in two stages. She's saying like, "Oh, I'm attracted to you, so I'm going to be flirtatious." And then in the second, I haven't written many options, I only have one option. So let's Hey. So I'm Demon Dev, and I've been thinking a lot and discussing with a lot of people the core ideas of the Electra system, or as I call it, depth branching. And what that means is a extra level of branch of narrative or dialogue branching that's not just at the macro level where it can, you have two options and there's two respective options, but an internal branch within a node connection. So when the AI says hi, and you say we need to talk, when she's reacting to you talking here, there's a special process that happens over here that actually handles its own internal branch, and then out of that it kind of connects back to the whole node structure. So a lot of people have raised questions. Okay, well, why are we doing this? What is the point of having branching within branching other than that it sounds kind of cool and inception-y? Well, there are specific rules and constraints for this kind of self-contained branching. The first is that it's purely reactive to the player's expression and the relationship that the AI has towards the player. So I've recently added these little sliders. You can see I'm in automatically calculating the AI up here. Really fun mode where I can show, depending on where the starting relationship is, what the AI will choose based on the different player options. So if the player option chooses to pursue an entirely different conversation, it stops there because I haven't written it yet. But within this player option, if they choose to express themselves in different ways, sometimes that can make the difference. Right now, I have the bond starting at like a 7.5, but if it's a more of a mixed value, then you can see how sometimes the different expressions will actually influence which AI option gets selected. So what you can see here is if you're rude, um, the true rating is a 2.6, but the closest rating it's going to snap to is a 4. If you're direct, the rating's slightly higher, but same deal. And then if you choose vulnerable, which are serious and timid damage type, then it's actually positive enough to snap up to a 6. So, um, what do we do with all that? Well, because it's contained internally, it allows a lot of subtlety and nuance. You're not just, choosing to get into the topic at all. You're deciding, and a lot of these are very similar to each other: confident, serious, mean, cliche, serious, and timid. So these two share serious, but in different primary or secondary slots. And you can see how it's changing the calculation. Um, because it's all happening internally to this one AI node, we're actually able to enforce a rule on the player options. So the player options all have to mean the same thing within this macro option. In this case, this one box represents all of the different expressions within this type. So we can add more if we can think of more ways to write it. So, and you can do it in any order. You can find a word. You can see I've got an emotion dictionary loaded. So every combination of emotions, and you can even do contradictory emotions. So serious and funny is dark, and funny, serious is mocking. Uh, Crude and clean is edgy. Clean and crude is more subtle. Um, you can also do none to get a very weak version of a tone. So because of this, there's 12 tone types, 13 if you include none. So you get 169 different adjectives to describe all the ways a player can express themselves. And this is in a meaningful way. This is all unique damage types. And you can see that with unique funny. So because we're doing this, we can see the AI reactions jumping all over because the AI is having a live reaction to whatever we're choosing. So maybe there's an option that she really loves, smart and funny. She is a bit of a dork, so it's not weird that she would like that combination. So our base relationship is a 6.3. By being satirical here, she's combining them together. So the bond 6.3 plus satirical, and it's getting to a rating of 8.1. And then at that point, we do our depth branching. So we take this calculation, this 8.1 out of 10, and we look for the closest written option within there. So you can see I've written three options. That's what these circles mean. And so it's choosing automatically right now. I've got it on Calc AI. If I set it to manual, then I can set up different options. You know, maybe there's an extreme option here. Let's see where to go. Oh, oops, I added a thing here. I didn't want to do that. Can I delete it? Let's see. All right, cool. I meant to hit add here. Yeah, I need to clean up the UI a little bit. But yeah, okay, so now you can see we've got 4 actions. And this internal branching can connect to a macro branch. So by default, it's set to 0. If we just do all next, it'll, in a sense, stay as a very simple depth branch, which means all of these options still go to the same next um, exchange. And this is actually 2 AI exchanges in a row. And I'll get into how powerful that is to chain together multiple AI responses. What that allows is you can set different manual mood sources. So you could have the player say many things in a row or just one thing in a row, and then you can set the AI's responses to all those things, and maybe not even in order. That's a natural thing that happens. You're arguing, and you put in some extra stabby punch at the end. Maybe the AI is only reacting to that, and you can orchestrate these incredible reactions with the system. But anyways, let's stay focused. So I just added a new option. Maybe this new option goes all the way. I have to type it in. Oh, I see. So is it this? Oh, okay. Yeah, something about let's see, the automatic or manual has made the dragging not work, so I'll have to fix that. But you can see it automatically resorts based on the left to right, 0 to 10 scale. So the worst is I don't know, and this is all of her reacting to asking her to talk. Maybe a satirical way is I'd love to avoid it, but I think we got a chat coming on. Okay. So maybe this is a way of saying it satirically. I'd love to avoid it, but I think we got a chat coming on. Um, there's probably a better way to say it, but this is more weird than smart. Um, let's just change this word. Um, and so in this case, she really loves satirical. So she's going to choose the 10 option. So maybe she says something as flirty as, I was hoping we would get down to business. And maybe this wouldn't be chained. Maybe this would just skip straight to 4. No, very simple. That way, how you can relatively easily manage a shuffling of what she's saying here. Um, so you have all these different options, and she can react quite wildly across all these different options. And that's up to you as the writer designer, how powerful you want these options to be. You can see the AI's personality playing out here, and you also see that this is a conversation based on a very high bond value. But maybe if our friendship is struggling a little bit more, then she's ending up with a very not having a good time with this conversation. So let's switch back to Calc AI so you can see it update a little bit better. Um, And so if our friendship, if our bond is at a 2.3 and it starts at a 5, so things aren't going super well here. Um, Almost all these options are going to result in a very low result. Even the satirical, which she loves, is still kind of getting a dot dot dot, which is a middle range option. It's not really possible to reach all the way up there. Your friendship would have to be a lot higher for her to recognize that there's something going on. Anyways, if we carry along with this, we can actually bring this into the next stage and see, okay, do you want to date me? So this is us bringing it out into the open. And again, you see this reaction happening. But interestingly, okay, we're all very high. What is that about? Well, that's because the respect, and it's used generally to deal with attraction-based interactions, is at a much higher value. So if the respect was all the way at a 0, let me type here so that it'll jump us down in the visualizer over here. If we have a 0, no matter what we choose, oh, it seems like she really likes fearless. So if we're confident, then she is going to choose the higher option. But if we choose these other options, she's very much trying to lean out of the conversation. And then if we have a higher respect rating, then pretty much all these options are going to result in her commenting on having kissed you. And this is based on a very specific premise. One of the next things I'm going to be adding is just like a premise organizer over here. And what that means is just specific events that should be there. I strongly believe that setting a very specific premise is the way to arrive at rich dialogue. And then you can fight, battle, and, inspire new player options, new AI reactions to branch off of that. I think it's more important to develop a foundation and basis that lets you explore who that AI character is before you go wild west with player options, because I think that can all make it very murky and lack sort of a central theme that makes this AI character feel like a real person. Anyways, what I wanted to get into was systematizing meaning. So I don't believe that that's possible. Maybe in the future with more advanced AIs, we'll get to a point where we can apply the same level of image recognition to detecting objects, to detecting meaning and expression, and the social interactions that go on between people. I don't think we're anywhere close right now. And so I have an alternative. The alternative is, well, the best way to systematize something is to put it in a list, essentially. Is as soon as you can take multiple of the same category of thing and put them together, you've created basically an association variable by default. And that just means that these are similar somehow. It's when your computer asks you to define all the different street lamps, to prove you're a human, it's kind of like it's kind of like that. If you put similar things together, it creates a shared meaning, and that's exactly what the system is based on. It creates a shared meaning that takes on a more pure meaning, a more representative meaning. So that comes back to this first option. Hey, can I ask you something? Do you have a minute to talk? We need to talk. I'd love to sidestep it, but I think we got a chat coming on. All different ways to try and broach this uncomfortable subject, probably for the player. Maybe there'd be another way of saying it that's not you dancing around about it. And maybe that would even be a macro option, saying it in a different way that way. But all these different expression options, there's one big rule, which is they all have to mean the same thing. And when you make them mean the same thing, then all the different AI reactions, no matter which one you choose, these options should make sense with. And because you get that interaction, you do a couple things. One, there's a crazy level of branching here. Depending on the context of your relationship and how much of a difference a little bit of influence makes from all these different expressions, you could have, any cross product. You could be vulnerable and she could really dislike it. But if your bond was higher, like super high, then she's, just just loving you a lot. If it's more of a middle range, then what you say here does really matter. And if you choose the way of expressing it in a way that is kind of smart, funny, and weird, then she can get on board with where this conversation is going. Um, I think that's really cool, and I think that if you represented this in its own macro, well, one, you wouldn't have any certainty as the player that these were all connected to all of these possible options. One of the cool things about this system is the constraint it puts on the writer. What it says is, hey, all these expression types are valid, and valid means they have a chance at playing on this landscape, on the AI considering it across all these options, on the AI saying, I don't know, well, kind of silent, or I was hoping we would get down to business. She's considering all of these options, no matter which one you choose on that spectrum. And she's taking into account the relationship and the expression. And because all those options are respected, that blows open the door for players to create strategies. It's no longer right, wrong answer. There's a context. The context is the relationship and the AI's personality. So maybe exactly the AI's personality, so you know the effects of these things, but there are complex effects within this. So it's not just, okay, satirical maximizes her response. Smart and funny play their own game with the personality system. Let me see if I can jump to it. Where's the personality fist? Okay, there we go. Let me just cue that up. What's the best way here? Yeah, it's not bad. So we're selected on Poppy. Oh, oops. Let's go back to Poppy. So what was this? It was smart and funny. So let's find smart and funny. So yeah, so we see here kind of what we would expect. It's having a significant positive effect. But what are all the other effects that it has? Well, smart is also increasing her respect for us. So that's a big win. Smart is also a deciding factor in a moment of conflict. So if the AI is split between two different AI choices or reactions, then the fact that we said it in a smart way is going to have her choose the higher option if it's close. So that's really cool too. This character, Poppy, she's smart. She really appreciates smartness in a lot of contexts. Um, how about funny? Well, funny also increases her respect for us. And it looks like that's the only effect this funny has. So this is just a real winner across the board. But you can see all the different emotions. This is like me scrubbing through all the different damage types. As you can see, there's 168. So there's quite a few. So dumb and funny, she's not as much of a fan of. You can see how that's making her dislike us a little bit. It is raising one of the multipliers, so capacity for her to be attracted, but it's not building any attractive actively. Dumb confident has much more disastrous effects, where it's lowering the relationship by a lot. So, anyways, when you're presented with all these options, you're seeing this mixed bag, and you've got the short term view in mind. What is this going to do in this situation? But you've also got, well, hey, my respect is kind of feeling low. Um, I don't want to get to a point where I'm, asking her directly and her, not be at the maximum possible attraction to me right now. I don't, you can flub things in the start of a conversation that could have gone well. Um, it's not the most common thing. Usually you're falling, a good ways past a zone. So there's some room for error. And that room for error also means room for creativity. You can exploit that room, those gaps between the snappable options to be like, you know what? I'm close enough here. I'm going to prioritize something else and still get the positive reaction that I want that will lead me to a conversation which involves going on a date or getting her to go out with me, but I'm building a relationship value that's important. Maybe you've focused on her attraction, so your bond is really low and you struggle through this conversation. She's being very hostile. You're getting 0 ratings, so she's enraged about the way you're talking, but you push forward even though she's being super not happy with you, and her attraction to you, her respect, even though your relationship as friends is terrible, she's so attracted to you that if you can get to this point where you're asking her this question, she's going to be saying, yes, or that she's interested. um so that's really interesting too, and it um can even be broken down into a two-step process. So look what I have here. We're asking her out. She's very attracted, which is, and the attraction formula or the respect formula is called charm. Charm equals the base respect value. So that's the relationship plus the way that we're expressing ourselves, obvious. So this is going really well for us. We're getting a rating of 8, but there's actually 2 chained AI reactions in a row. And in the second interaction, she's using bond. So what does that mean? Well, she's considering both aspects of the relationship in 2 stages. She's saying like, "Oh, I'm attracted to you, so I'm going to be flirtatious." And then in the second, I haven't written many options, only have 1 option, so let's just add another one to kind of show what's going on. Oh, it looks like it wants me to drag it or something. How do I get this to reset? Okay. Um, so I had only written a 6 option, so it had to snap to that. But if I wrote a 0 option, maybe she said something like, "You get that this can't work, right?" And maybe this goes to a completely new place. It's like, "What is that supposed to mean?" And so she's confirmed that she's attracted to you. And then in the next step, emphasized that she doesn't believe that you guys can have a relationship. And this is the kind of crazy complexity that is totally manageable here. Um, Now let's try replaying the conversation with the opposite attributes. So let's say your bond is maxed out and the respect is 0. So you say, she says hi. You say, "Oh, we need to talk." Um, let's say you even say it. Let's set it to automatically calculating the AI. You say we need to talk in a satirical way. Let me just jump up so we're seeing the kind of live playthrough. And then she's actually being very encouraging, um, because she's thinking about it in a friendship way. She doesn't know what the topic is, but she's trying to deal with some of the awkwardness maybe. And then so you make your play. You state that you're interested. Do you want to date me? But now she's reacting very poorly to you asking her out. Do we have to do this? But look at sorry, I don't I don't need to be in shock of my own system. I'm really excited about it. So she is telling us she's not attracted to us, but in the next step, she is using a reflection on her bond with you, which right in this playthrough, we've maximized the bond to something crazy like a 10. And so now she's telling us how she cares about us. Um, Instead of the other way around. So, and then, let me just set manually. So let's say somehow, we ended up at this option. Uh, then again, she's going to be snapping up here. But you can see the incredible complexity of AI emotional state. You can organize in a very manageable way. So like I had some stuff written, but there's not a lot going on here. There's some player expressions and I've put a couple AI reactions on this timeline. And I'm already handling 2 different completely opposite situations and scrolling through, I can play through it and I can play through it for real as well. though this is still in an experimental phase, it pretty well represents the way the game plays even outside of your controller set and VR. You can actually you use the arrow keys to select different options. Let's see if it'll dive into it and then I can show you. Um, you can actually press the play button and then, play through the conversation as the player would naturally. So let's see if we can get this to go through. I think part of what I need to do here is remove some of the test scripts that are slowing things down. And then I've got the whole VR project here. So ideally, when I export this for other people to use in Unity, it'll be a much slimmed down version that will load close to instantaneously. It's a really small fraction of the game that runs this stuff, even though I do think it's the coolest part. So we can see here, it's visualizing all our different options. You can use the arrow keys to go through the different options. Vulnerable, you can see it's like retyping the options based on the expression change, but all these mean the same thing. So up and down are just changing expression. Now, if I go left and right, this is the other conversation that I haven't written yet, but it shows you, and you even see that on the side. That's kind of cool. I didn't actually know that it was linked in that way. That's fun. But you can see the feedback on the side. It's automatically kind of tabbing through our dialogue tool here. Let me see if I can I scoot this up? Something like that one. Let me just see if I can get it slightly, not that much. Slightly better. Okay, that's not so bad. Except that it's cut off at the bottom. That's worse. Might be the best we can get. Okay. Anyways, so you can see these options at the bottom, and those just represent your different zones. So we're going through different options, and it's swapping out the pieces, representing that we're changing just a piece, the expression of what we're saying, and then left and right is changing the meaning. So setting off definitely in a different direction with this conversation if we ask her about her writing rather than confront her on the relationship status. So anyways, we say that, and we can see she's processing this and arriving at this middle result. And then, so now we have another thing to do, and we can decide how we're going to express our feelings. Now, ideally for the player, we would do another player option here. It looks like I haven't written this fearless option. So that's why nothing's showing up there. But ideally, we'd write a macro option here because we don't want to force the player into a confrontational confession of feelings or, a proposition to go on a date. But for what we've written so far, we can choose something and see how that goes. Okay, so now she's deciding between these two options, and that's going through. She hates it. And that's because her respect for us is at a 0. Awful. But in a friendship way, she's bouncing it back, and she's combine those together and express, she does care about us, but not in a romantic way. So anyways, I think that's cool. It's, still a system that needs tuning, but you can see in a relatively short manner how you can write stuff over here and play through it and get these really complex relationships all organized neatly. So that's the beauty of depth branching is you can basically organize the set of all relationships, and the relationships are defined by these core values of bond, respect, and then there's some multipliers also that are a little bit more tricky to keep track of, but these are the core right here. So yeah, this should be a kind of a look at kind of what working with it at a more advanced level looks. It's still just skimming the surface because we've really only done the depth branching here and not depth branching plus macro branching, or the micro branching plus macro branching, which I'm really excited about too. All right, have a good one, and stay tuned. I'm going to be doing a lot more on systematizing meaning in the next one, probably.